Good evening. This is a meeting of the Athens Board of Zoning Appeals. The time is 7 p.m. and the date is December 9, 2014. At this time, I will call the meeting to order. The board consists of 5 members and 2 alternates, the alternates taking full part in the discussions and becoming a voting member in the absence of a member or when a member abstains for conflict of interest. Present tonight are Ms. Betty Hollow, Ms. Kay Towsley, Ms. Joan Kleinensky, and alternates are Mr. Ed Baum and Ms. Ellen Salto, who will be the voting member tonight. I am John Golsey, the chair. Also present are Zoning Administrator Mr. John Paskey and Secretary Mr. Paul Eschenbacher. At this time, I invite you to view a pre-recorded video on the rules and procedures of the board.
The Athens Board of Zoning Appeals operates according to the following procedure. The chair will name and describe the case. The zoning administrator or secretary will state the basis of the objection and any applicable facts or conditions pertaining to the case. The appellant or their representative will give reason why the appeal should be viewed favorably. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of the request will be heard. Anyone wishing to speak in general comment will be heard. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition will be heard. If necessary, the appellant or their representative will offer concluding, summary, or rebuttal remarks. Testimony from the floor shall be closed. The board will deliberate and render a decision. According to Athens City Code, Section 23.07.03b, the board has power to grant variances from the strict application of the code, provided the variance will not be contrary to the public interest, the spirit of the code is observed, public safety and welfare are secured, and substantial justice is done. According to Athens City Code, Section 23.07.10c, variances from the code shall not be granted unless the board makes specific findings of fact based directly on the particular evidence presented to it, that the standards and conditions imposed in this title, if applicable, have been met by the applicant. Exceptional circumstances. There are exceptional or extraordinary circumstances or conditions applying to the property in question or to the intended use of the property that do not apply generally to other properties or classes or uses in the same zone. Practical difficulty and undue hardship. Because of exceptional or extraordinary circumstances or conditions pertaining to a specific piece of property, a literal enforcement of these regulations will result in practical difficulty or undue hardship that is unnecessary to the achievement of public purposes. Preservation of equal property rights. Literal interpretation of these regulations would deprive the appellant of rights commonly enjoyed by others in the same zone and the same vicinity, while a granting of the requested variance will not confer on the applicant any special privilege that is denied to other properties in the same zone and the same vicinity. Minimum variance. The variance granted is the minimum variance required to make possible the reasonable use of the property. Absence of detriment. The authorizing of such variance will not be of substantial detriment to adjacent property and will not materially impair the purpose of the zoning code or the public interest. Not of a general nature. The condition or situation of the specific piece of property or the intended use of said property for which variance is sought, one or the other or in combination, is not of so general or recurrent a nature as to make reasonably practicable the formulation of a general regulation for such condition or situation. Any person, resident, or officer, department, or appointed body of the City of Athens, aggrieved by a decision of the Board, may petition the Athens County Court of Common Pleas concerning the illegality of the decision. Such petition must be filed within 30 days after the mailing of the decision of the Board to the applicant. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Before we go on, I want to thank the staff at the Athens Government TV for the beautiful intro they have created. It was a great job. Thank you. There is only one case on tonight's agenda, and case is number 14-16V for the property at 15 North Court Street. The board is required to take testimony under oath. Would anyone wishing to speak concerning any item on the agenda please stand? Do you swear or affirm that any testimony you will present to the board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you. Be seated, please. Okay, our case again is case number 14-16V. The zone is B3, and the address is 15 North Court Street, and the appellant is Mr. John Valentour. Mr. Paskey, if it's okay, I'll just read the statement as it is in here, and then we'll discuss the numbers. Would that be okay? Okay, we will have something as a base. Appellant is requesting variances from ACC 2310, Table A, a schedule of bulk controls, to allow the construction of a mixed-use commercial and multi-family structure with a side yard setback of 5 feet, where 15 feet is the minimum required, and from ACC 2310, Table B, off-street parking requirements, to allow 59 on-site parking spaces where 86 on-site parking spaces are required, and from ACC 230801D to allow 53 off-site parking spaces 465 feet away where 250 is the maximum distance allowed, and that has to be also deed restricted. So, Mr. Paskey, any comments?
Yeah, let me clarify this a lot. And I sent all of you an email earlier today. The plans that you have in front of you, Mr. Valentour brought into me the actual day of the application deadline, and I had already sent everything into the newspaper. So what is actually being proposed in the ordinance tonight versus what he's turned in are different. So they're not the same. The numbers are not that far apart, so I guess we can move forward with this, and you guys can alter the numbers accordingly, if so being. But it is different than the original drawing that I had, and we'd already gone to press with it by the time that he brought it into me. So, but the thing I want to clarify, and I did it earlier, is I'm estimating on the plan that was submitted that the first floor was about 10,000 square feet. And then usually I reduce it by 20% for bathrooms, mechanical space, et cetera, just since I didn't have a floor plan to actually scale it off of. And that would take that down to around 8,000 square foot by doing so. And at one parking space per 200 square foot for the first floor, we'd be looking at about 40 spaces that would be required for the commercial. John has submitted a plan that's indicating, and it does look as if the first floor is smaller than the original drawing that was submitted to me. And I think he's saying that he's going to need, what was it, John, 36 on the first floor? 35. So he has reduced the floor plan a little bit versus what was originally submitted to me. So now he's saying 35 parking spaces on the first floor, and that would probably, without me doing a takeoff, be somewhat close. So the second and third floors will have the difference in the structure of the floor plan's different, but the total number of bedrooms is the same, and I think that's what's important here. We don't really care the actual unit layout per se right now, but the total overall number of beds is 46. That stayed the same. So it's still 46 beds on the second and third floor. So with that being said, the total number of required parking spaces that I had before was 86. Now he's saying it's 35 and 46, so we're saying 81 parking spaces are required for this use. And then there is an existing building on the Carpenter and Grosvenor site that I came up with 8 parking spaces. I know John has 7, but again, I didn't know what the layout of the building is inside of that existing structure, so 7 would probably be acceptable by the time I back out restrooms, et cetera. So, which I did not do on my original plan. So That being said, a total of 88 parking spaces are required between the commercial on the first floor, the residential on the second and third floor, and the existing office building at the location where the parking lot is. A total of 88 parking spaces. His plan that submitted to me originally had 6 parking spaces on site at the corner of State and Court. He's altered that it now has 10. So if there's 10 on the site, that means we need 78 parking spaces at the corner lot up on Carpenter and Grosvenor. And that lot has 53 spaces. So we need 78 and 53 is what he has. He's short still by 25 parking spaces. So, that being said, the variance request will be for 25 parking spaces short of what is required, and for 88, so 78 of those parking spaces, or excuse me, need 81, 71 of the parking spaces being greater than 250 feet away. So, well, I shouldn't say 71 because he doesn't have 71. No. So, there's 53, so 45. 45 spaces greater than 250 feet away, which is what it was before. So 45 greater than 250 feet away and 25 less than required. It does appear that his new plan has adjusted for the small issue we had on the side yard setback. That wasn't a very big issue, but it looks like he's accommodated that. So I'm leaving that up to you as to whether you want to review it per the drawing that was submitted or the modifications. I think the modifications, looking at them, are minor enough that we can move forward based on this, just changing the numbers accordingly. But so if I'm making sense to you, that's where it's at. So basically, you're looking for a parking variance, 25 less than required, and 45 of the spaces being greater than 250 feet away. That's what we're looking at.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Paskey?
Yeah, I have several.
Joan?
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Joan,
Start
go
this
ahead.
and work down.
So when we're talking about this Carpenter Street parking spaces, and then we're going to tear down a building, and we're calculating how many spaces will be available based on the spaces that the engineering building is going to need. How much space are we going to need for, I mean, this then should probably have to go to the Shade Tree Commission. So have we calculated in how much space is going to be needed for that? Because it's right up to the sidewalk, and so...
It will have to go to the Shade Tree Commission, but in many instances, the uptown businesses, they look at it at a different rate, or I shouldn't say rate, but they'll allow for banking or sidewalk trees being planted, et cetera. So it will have to go to the Shade Tree Commission, and that will be one of the conditions they'll have to meet. So,
I mean, there's several other properties that did parking lots near downtown, and, you know, they have an expanse for... So I'm just asking, because that could eliminate some of the parking places that would be actually available.
if you approve the variance, these number of spaces, then parking overrides trees. So they would not be able to say, take those parking spaces out and put trees in. They would have to go by the approved plan that would be going through the process, and those additional trees that would be required that they can't meet, they would have to work.
Plan someplace else.
They would have to work out.
Have an open face parking.
They would have to
area
work out an arrangement with the Shade Tree Commission on that.
on the corner. Difficult. Ed?
So there will only be 10 parking spaces on site,
Correct.
presumably for the commercial.
I'll let them decide.
Okay.
Presumably, I mean, there's 46 beds, so the rationale is that the total 51, or how many spots I said they have, 45 and 10, 55 spots are going to be for the residential. So if they have 55 spots and they need 46 for the beds, that 46 beds? 46 beds, so basically 9 would be for commercial and the rest for residential. So they'd be meeting the residential at a 1-to-1. Basically, they're short on the request for the commercial.
Couple of questions, not with this property, but the property across the street, the Campbell Block. Is that residential on the second, third floors?
Where at?
The Campbell Block across the street. above Casa Nueva, et cetera.
Yes, that is residential.
And do you have any idea how many beds are in there?
I can tell you, but not right now.
And then further down the street above CVS, now that's a B2D zone.
Correct.
Do you know any idea how many beds are above CVS, that old apartment building that's been
I
rehabbed?
want to say that one's in the 30 to 40 range.
Okay. Thank you.
And I only know that because it got variances that I had to look at before.
Any other questions? Well, Mr. Volunteer, please state your name and your address for the records, please. Yes.
Here's a little picture. This is a schematic. Hopefully you'll see it. I think you all have a small version in that packet that I think that John had provided. Well, thank you very much for taking the time to listen to us this evening. And I think that John Paskey indicated fairly correctly what we're asking for. The variances are going to be required for the distance from the property to the parking for the residential only. All that parking, except for what is required on the building that is on the site on Carpenter Street, would be residential and the commercial for that building. And we will provide 10 spaces plus loading and unloading on the Court Street property for this project. So essentially what we're asking for is the commercial, 25 commercial spots also be waived from your requirements, from the zoning requirements.
I don't understand what you're saying.
There's two issues that we have to deal with here.
Right, okay, got that,
The first issue is the distance from the property
you got it?
is over 250 feet from the parking lot.
Yes,
That parking lot will be dedicated to the one commercial building that is on that property now
I see.
and all the residential in this project on State and Court Street. But we are providing 10 commercial spaces on the property on Court Street for employees as well as for delivery or loading and unloading.
Okay.
That is
so-
going to be off-street. It's
Okay.
not going to be on street. It's going to be separate.
So the parking that's too far away for the existing building and for the residential, the residents of the Court Street property.
That's correct.
That number will be
46 spots.
okay, so we've got 46 beds, and the Carpenter Street lot already has a building on it. Does that building require some parking?
Yes, 7, according to my
So
calculations.
it's 46 plus 7,
That's correct.
okay, which is 53.
That's
That's what
correct.
that lot has.
All right, got it.
We've designed that lot to accommodate 53 parking
Okay,
spots.
so you have 53 plus the other 10.
And we also have accommodated green space, and we have set back the parking lot from the property line so that we can put trees on that site.
Okay. Which on-site, the Carpenter
The
Street or the
Carpenter
Court
Street
Street?
site, the Carpenter Street site.
So you have setback,
We've set back the parking. I've been able to manage 53 parking spots on that site and maintain at least a 3-foot planting bed on Carpenter Street and Grosvenor Street, as well as the islands that are created because the lot is not square. So it creates angles which create spaces which can't be used for parking. So in those places, we have allocated planting zones for that lot as well. So it's not going to be just a big parking lot, which it is right now.
The on-site on Court Street, the 10 spaces, you said 10 spaces plus loading and unloading. So 10 spaces plus unloading or,
Well, we have a driving lane behind the building at least 12 feet wide that vehicles can come in and load and unload. To the commercial, there should be, at least the way we've got it planned so far schematically, 3, maybe 4 commercial businesses on the first floor. So they would be able to have vehicles deliver from the rear side of their buildings on the property.
Okay, well, that's what I'm trying to clarify.
Yes,
So that would happen on the rear of the building?
that's correct.
And you're saying 3 or 4 businesses on the first floor?
That's correct. We have about 8,500 square feet is what we ended up with. I think convenience store will be approximately 3,500 square feet, and the rest we can divvy up to different commercial activities which can occur on that floor, as well as a lobby for the residential floors above, a lobby and elevator.
And the total number projected beds, since it's really unclear,
46.
46 beds.
46 beds. And all the entrances to those apartments would be through the Court Street entrance?
No, we have two means of egress and entrance. The primary entrance will be actually off State Street, more towards the Matters building, off to the side.
Point that out on the,
Well, sort of hidden behind the trees here. This is the entrance to the residential area.
okay,
This is Court Street.
correct.
Going that way.
Yeah, I recognize that.
So the potential for a business here, convenience store, and then a few more commercial businesses going down to Court Street.
So what kind of balcony structure are we looking at on the,
No balconies.
so what is that on the second, right above that front awning on Court Street?
Glass. Now,
Yeah, but I just wanted to clarify.
I'm going out of sequence in my little presentation here,
Oh,
but
sorry.
I'll address that anyway right
Okay.
at this point, so it's fresh on your mind. But we've already been before the Historic Preservation Committee, and they made, when we presented this, which is, you have to remember, this is a schematic presentation at this point in time, pretty much massing in terms of how the building would sit on the site and some of the maybe characteristics which the building would have. And they gave us a report back that had suggestions which they would like to see happen on this site or any site on Court Street. And I think that I wasn't at that meeting, but these 3 people were. And we can talk in more detail about the kinds of design features that they feel should be incorporated into the building. And I don't believe that any of them would have been a problem for us to accommodate. Brick masonry, they don't like the glass, the round stuff out there, but even so much glass and metal, they want to see it more of a traditional construction and traditional materials that you might see in Athens, Ohio. And all that we would do our best to accommodate. Now I have the minutes from that meeting, if you'd like to look at them, from the committee. if anybody has any specific questions about what went on at that meeting, I believe that anybody here besides I can address those issues. Okay? What I'd like to, really talk about, obviously, as everybody can see, this proposal involves a significant alteration to one of the major intersections in Athens, Ohio. Uptown Athens, State and Court Street. And due to the current use on the corner, which is a service station, it has really created a different type of environment than you normally see at most of the other major intersections in Athens. And then it's more open. The only other juncture that really could compare would be Union and Court up by the College Green in terms of a relief from the metropolitan buildings right to the corner. And I don't know if you folks, I know the Goldsberries have experienced it, but I was sort of one evening a couple months ago put into position to be uptown at that intersection on a Friday night. It wasn't really a special night at 1 o'clock in the morning. That doesn't happen very often. But I was amazed at the amount of people that were congregating at the BP station. I mean, I have never even realized that or thought that that would be the case. And I'm sure that it's because it provides an open relief from the uptown sidewalk scene. And I think that one of the things we're trying to do with the proposal we're providing here today is to keep that corner open as much as we can, more than we need to. The setback requirements, as John indicated, we are going to push back farther than we need to by code and keep the building off the setback lines, especially on the State Street and Court Streets intersection. We're also going to design that and landscape it. Use Athens bricks, create an outdoor environment that is designed and landscaped in some place that will be conducive to pedestrian congregation at that location. What makes that even more, I mean, I think it's valuable and it'd be good, but also what will happen if we're allowed to do this is that the majority of the curb cuts that currently allow traffic to run in and out, helter-skelter, at that intersection will be gone. We'll have one curb cut at the entrance that we need for parking off of State Street for an access for vehicles. The outlet will be down the alley, farther down Court Street, between the adjacent property. So that in itself will make that whole environment an awful lot more pedestrian-oriented by removing all the vehicles and the traffic that are moving in and out of that section of town. Just a few things about what the intentions of the building are too. The Goldsberries are determined to make this an environmentally friendly building. The roof pitches that you see, the gables, the north-south orientation, we intend to use solar technology, solar panels, and any of the all energy efficient systems that we possibly can, as well as local people involved in the entire project, like yours truly. This kind of thing we've done on other projects, and I think it makes a big influence on people, where with the solar technology in the lobby of, say, the apartments, we can have telemetrics which show what's going on so that people can actually see the energy that is being produced and conserved by this building or generated by this building and used and stored, and how the whole systems work. It makes people a little bit more aware, because solar power really doesn't turn windmills. You can't see it, but you can see it if you actually intercept the lines that are carrying the power. And I think that makes an influence, and especially younger kids, to that type of technology. A couple things that are important too to remember, I think, in consideration for this project is that we are complying with all city zoning code regulations for density and setbacks on this site. This B3 zone, we are not asking for any variances that are required or would be required for bulk controls from zoning. The numbers of units, the setbacks, the height, all will be in compliance with this B3 zone. I think I've described the parking situation enough that you have an understanding of what we're facing here. One of the buildings at the site on Carpenter Street will be demolished and replaced with parking. I believe I took photographs and gave them to you up there at the desk earlier. Building is a old garage. It's concrete block. And I think that you can tell by a lot of the photographs that it's not in a state that is worthy of saving. The other commercial building will be saved, obviously, as we've indicated already. And I already mentioned that we're going to landscape that lot and make it more visually appealing, as well as making it more organized. If you drive through there right now, the cars are all helter-skelter all over the parking lot, and it's hard to really figure out what's going on, at least in that lot. I'd like to just go through the findings, at least my view. The practical difficulty to undue hardship. The density of the Athens urban environment is similar in this section of Court Street, North Court Street, as it is in the Uptown Historic District in general. This property is classified a B3, which requires parking for commercial as well as residential tenants, which is the big difference between the B3 and the B2D zones. Conforming to the requirements for commercial parking creates an undue hardship at this B3 zone. Not all B3 zones, but this one it does because of its proximity and its really common nature with the Uptown B2D district. The preliminary design does address the need for delivery and spaces for commercial employees at the site. Those 10 parking spaces are more than, I think, a lot of the other businesses can provide in this particular section of B3 zone down to Carpenter Street. Exceptional circumstances. All the properties in this B3 zone, North Court Street, have similar issues with code conformance. The use and density plan for this property conform to code. However, meeting the on-site parking is not practical unless ground floor commercial space is designated for parking. And we don't want to do that, I don't think, in this area. The B3 zones located outside the Uptown area are capable or able to conform. But in this specific instance, we have an exceptional circumstance. The preservation of property rights. The properties in the B3 zone from State Street to Carpenter Street have existing buildings which do not conform to bulk controls required for this zone or the requirements for commercial on-site parking. I think most don't. Maybe the library does, or the Historical Society, I'm not sure. This project will comply, though, with bulk controls. Normally, when I've done projects on this section of Athens, even if we comply with everything else, we fail bulk controls because we don't have setbacks. And most of the buildings, at least from here down, on East State and on Court Street, do not meet bulk controls. The minimum variance. The project has been designed in accordance with the code for this zone. The uses proposed are allowed and do not exceed the densities permitted. The variance for commercial parking is justified by the nature of the district. The request for providing residential parking in excess of 250 feet from the site is the minimum distance possible outside the uptown district. And different, I think, than a lot of the other cases that might have come before here, this parking lot will be owned by the same, under same ownership as the building. They won't be leased or rented, they will be owned. And I think the deed restriction is not an issue at that point either. The designated site for the residential parking is 450 feet from the building and is currently used as a parking lot for the most part. One of the two structures will be retained for commercial use on that site. So we're not tearing everything down and making it a parking lot. We are going to make the existing parking lot better. Absence of detriment. The project will be a benefit to the area by providing a pedestrian-friendly environment with features to encourage social interaction as well as more commercial space on Court Street. The removal of the gas pumps will make the site safer while creating a better environment, especially after hours. Not of general nature. The situation of this property is not unusual for this B3 zone or the B2D zone adjacent to the property. The intended uses of the property are in conformance with the zone regulations and parking requirements and density of development in the district, making all parking on site impractical based on what is allowable in this particular zone. The parking strategy and the variances that we're requesting you to consider tonight, we think are the most reasonable and practical solution for development of this piece of property.
Any questions for Mr. Valento?
Yeah, I'm trying to, could you show where the entrance is on State Street for the parking area, and where is the parking area?
Back here?
So the 10 spaces are in the rear,
That's correct.
and there's also a space back there for loading and unloading.
The parking.
Difficult to.
Let me just go through the plan here.
Plus, is this, I mean, what we have, is this what?
There's the State Street entrance, and then we've provided a lot of room back here, more than we would need for parking.
So these are the 10 spaces.
That's correct, and all this spaces is actual staging.
Okay, this is,
At the beginning of the year, you're going to have an awful lot of people trying to move in. They aren't going to be able to carry all that stuff from here to here. How do you want us to handle that?
Well,
Yeah.
I think that there's, just like in most of the uptown areas, there have to be some coordination managed by the ownership of the building and the businesses with the tenants. And hopefully they could, during those days of moving in or out, that the commercial activities could subside somewhat, at least, maybe, and allow for the tenants to access the building from right there in the property. I assume that that's what would be intended or tried to make managed. There should be enough room back there for all that to happen. Even if they had employees parking there, some kind of traffic control management should keep this off-street and make it feasible.
Thank you.
basically, it would just be part of the general chaos that goes on. And
Yes.
Got that right.
You want to talk?
You will have your chance. Just one. Mr. Volunteer, before you go, I guess we got all the numbers right now. I just want to summarize just to make sure everybody's on the same page. You need 81 total, and you can only provide 46 off the street, and you want a variance for the distance. And then you want a relief for 25 spaces.
25 commercial.
Commercial, okay. So that's the numbers. Okay, everybody agrees, right? All right, you may be seated. At this point, anyone wishing to speak in favor of the request, please come forward. And please state your name and your address for the record.
Okay. I'm Christy Goldsberry. I live at 197 Longview Heights in Athens. Just to clarify, you had stated that we needed 81 spots. 53 are available on that remote lot, and 10 are available on site.
But you require
So that
81.
is a total of 63, and we're required to 81.
I
81,
backed,
correct?
No.
No.
because I backed out the 7 already for the engineering.
Oh,
building.
okay, all right. Then that makes sense, because that's even confusing me.
So then what's the
I
total?
took them out altogether.
Essentially, we're asking for a variance for the commercial parking.
Right.
Which we would like to, many of the businesses in downtown Athens have that same luxury
Wow.
of being able to, since they're downtown and it's a unique area and it's a dense structure, dense structures are all in there, we feel that is the common sense thing to do, is to ask for a variance for that. One of the things that I just wanted to reiterate was our intent to make this a building that would complement the downtown area. Currently, the business has been a business that's been in our family for a very long time, my husband's family, and we've continued to use it in the manner at which it was built to be used. And it's not really a conducive use for the downtown area. It's a gas station in the middle of a densely populated historical district that we would like to change. And that is one reason why we decided to talk to the folks of the Historical Society or the Historical Committee and get their input, because we really do value everyone's opinions about these type of things, and we do want to make sure that the building that we put up is, what the community wants and enjoys, and we want to be proud of it. So, as you can see in the minutes, they had some suggestions. We completely agreed with their suggestions. And the intent is to build a structure which is going to conform to the rest of the downtown and to something for everyone to be proud of. So, and as far as the landscaping and the trees, the shade committee, I think that the parking structure, the parking plan that John drew up, do you have a copy of that? Because it shows the trees on the trees and the landscaping on the plan, which I think might alleviate some of your concern. I don't.
Well, I see that. I just needed to clarify, because
Okay.
many times things show up on plans and they really need to be clarified, because I think there was a more current set of plans presented to the code office, so I'm not really sure how.
What you have are the current ones.
These are the current
Yeah.
ones.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we're very cognizant of the fact that these type of things need to be addressed. So that has been taken into consideration. So that's about all I have. I mean, does anyone have any questions for me? Okay, great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You may be seated. Anyone else who would like to speak on favor of this proposal?
Hi, my name's Kevin Goldsberry. Christie's husband. A lot of people know me as. 197 Longview Heights. Just one point that I thought was a little unclear that I could help address. When you seemed as though you were concerned with the move-in.
Speak up a little louder.
Okay, I get that at home too. One point that we've all experienced the move-in, move-out situations, and I know the university certainly has addressed that, with bringing in certain, like freshman students one day, sophomore students another day. Not sure that I could do that with this project, but those spaces that we would have dedicated to our employees on site certainly would not have to be parked there on move-in and move-out days, because there's going to be plenty of parking available and where the residents are going to park if and when they bring a car. So it would help to ease that transition period. We didn't really do homework or solicit opinions with other landlords in the area, but I got a pretty good inkling from someone who consulted with our project that it provided for the tenants are rarely used to their max. I don't know. I didn't get a percentage number or anything, but I would guess 60% probably would be a fair number. That it's unusual that if you put more people in the situation where they don't need a car, they don't bring a car. And we would, although until we could actually get something finite and know what we're dealing with from a commercial space, this design and then structure of the building and everything else, we certainly are willing to explore some of the new innovative things that other cities are doing with the, what do they call those, Ubers, or cars that like cars that people could all they got to do is get a key and go get it, rent it by the hour, rent it by the day. That's certainly something that we would look at also. Thank you. Any questions?
Questions? Yeah.
Well, since we don't know what type of businesses will be there or how many employees will be there, and that would be one of the concerns is employee parking. So if there's a possibility of 4 businesses, you would think that there would be at least 2 employees.
I think that's based on the square feet, so we don't have anything
Correct.
else to.
Right, exactly.
I did it at the maximum number required.
Right. So I'm trying to see where these 25 spaces that we're being asked to grant a variance for, which would be all the commercial spaces, that is correct?
Yeah.
There's 10 on site on State Street.
Correct.
And the new figures show that 35 spaces were required.
35 spaces for commercial, and they have 10 on site.
Right. So
they're asking a request, for 25 short
Right.
of the commercial.
and I guess my concern is with four business spaces, if that's going to be sufficient for even that, if it's only 2, if people want to pull in there and pick something up, and if you have deliveries.
I think that's a good concern, but I don't think we need to discuss it. Because, they need 35, and they're providing 35. If we give them, the variance. But how they're going to utilize that space, or how many people are going to be there, that's.
So what you're saying is we don't want to think of those 25 spaces as commercial only, that they're asking the
That's what
variance
they're
for?
saying, yeah.
And that's what you're saying?
Yeah. Mhm.
It would be hard, until we got a finite structure approved. We at this point have not approached anyone.
Oh, right, I realize that.
To rent commercial space, because we don't know how much commercial space we have. We have a plan.
The one thing that we're counting on too here, in most B3 zones, you don't have off-street parking available. The commercial spaces that are required are not just for employees, but also for the users of the commercial space. And realistically, we're one block from the parking garage here, essentially. And there is commercial parking on the streets, both streets. And I imagine after this project is completed, we're going to actually add more off-street parking on Court Street and on State Street when we cut out all the curb cuts that are existing right now. So realistically, we're going to be adding probably 5 or 6 more parking spots.
Well, I don't think it's quite that many. Because you can't park all the way up to the curb at the corner of East State.
No.
and-
Well, no,
We got 80.
before we put the vendors for Halloween this year, they'll be able to add 4 to 6. Because I know how much we had to leave home for vendors, for them to get into their driveways where the vendors were parking.
But that's not what we're discussing here, correct?
I'm saying on the street.
Right. This is
Right.
not what
No,
we're
I know that,
discussing
but
here. Right.
the
Okay.
determination of 35 parking spots is not for employees, it's for a Walmart, or it's for Dollar General. I mean, it's for a commercial activity that has retail function. We use the highest number, not knowing exactly what is going to go in these spaces. It could be a business. If it was a business, we'd only need 1 parking spot for every 400 square feet, not 1 for every 2. We've taken the worst-case scenario here.
Go ahead. Is the existing building that's shown on this little plot here the recruiting building?
That's going to stay. That's not recruiting anymore.
It's not recruiting. I haven't looked at it very closely for a long time.
It's other businesses. The recruitings have moved out on East State Street.
Okay. So what are they going to do for required parking?
We've included their parking. When we say we needed 46 spaces, we're providing 53 on that site.
Okay.
We're providing 7 spaces for that commercial business on that site.
Yeah. And my other question, which only is peripherally associated with your property, is that there are people who work on Court Street who currently rent spaces in this area. You're taking up all the spaces. Any idea where they're going to go?
Sorry, no. I'm sure there's other spaces available.
Really?
Did you have a question?
No, not at this point.
I'd like to address something that I know is of a concern of a lot of people, and that is, why are you asking for 25 spaces, a variance for 25 spaces? And this is a question that comes up time and time again in Athens about parking, about having this additional having to conform to zoning code. The zone that we are in currently is B3. The zone that is directly catty-corner for me, excuse me, is B2D. They don't have to have any commercial parking. It's catty-corner for me. And so, and it's a block, all the properties on Court Street are pretty much the same, except there's this one zoning difference that is occurring between, where East State Street separates us. And so we just want to be able to enjoy that. And the whole reason that they're not required, in my mind, I may be wrong, but the whole reason I think that they are not required to have the parking is because it's just within walking distance, everything. I mean, they're walking everywhere. You don't want cars when you don't need cars.
I think, Chrissy, that there's probably another reason. And I think, in my mind, this is the difference in your property proposed and the existing properties, either in your same district or in the B2D. And it is that those buildings that don't require commercial parking have not, in fact, had any chance of being able to do that. The buildings are old, they're close together, They were not designed for streets with automobiles. They were designed for people who walked or came on a horse. And so your building is new. It's new construction. So you can comply in ways that existing buildings really, truly cannot. And I have been on the board long enough to know that some of those buildings have gotten a variety of variances, not necessarily for parking, but perhaps for arrangements of tenants or this or that. And it is simply because they are as they are. They butt the sidewalk. They have very little property behind them and none on the sides. And so they don't have the option of supplying really any parking at all, or to make very many changes in their buildings except interiorly. And I think that's often where we have been asked for variances, is something interior.
Yeah, I understand the limitations of existing properties. I think that we've offered a pretty good compromise in this situation by putting the 10 spaces on the property, and then also having the remote parking being relatively close. So,
But, I mean, you look at the plan, building looks lovely. The trees on the plan look inviting. You've got space out front. So that is so different from the possibility of any other existing downtown building. So it's different, it looks great. But in my mind, there's a great deal of difference between what you can supply and what those older buildings can do.
the other issue you had mentioned was how many employees and the unknown of what businesses are going to be in there. Currently, we have the convenience store there, the current structure, and we are planning on having our convenience store be there after we get done and take up roughly half of the space. And so I can tell you that several of our employees walk to work. And typically, I mean, even on a really busy night, there might be, 4 people working. That would be a busy night. So it's not like, there's tons of employees in a 3,500 square foot area. So, I don't know, maybe that helps with clearing that up a little bit.
It does and it doesn't, because that is the situation now. But this building, we assume, is going to last a really long time. So you may not have the same tenants, the same commercial workers there. They may live in New Marshfield, but who knows when. So even though you have 4, some of whom walk now, it's really immaterial to me, because we grant the variance to the building, and you have to assume that things will change in terms of who works there.
Sure.
Well, the other sensitivity to the parking, my concern is that it is closer to the residential neighborhoods on the other side of Carpenter Street. And if I'm not mistaken, John can correct me here, but all the new residential structures that went up at the north end of Court Street were all required to have parking.
They all were required to have parking for their residential, and every one of them that I can think of since I've been here have received variances for the commercial.
But most of them do have some parking. Who has a variance for their commercial?
The new overhang was granted a variance for their commercial, the old Gator building.
Oh, but it had a variance in the past, even though it had lapsed. I mean, that was another one of those structures like Betty's talking about,
Right.
I think, that was confined by...
That would be the most comparable, because it too, parking is in the same ownership and deed restricted to the property, like they're requesting here.
But what about Cornwell structure?
Cornwell structure, the buildings up on the corner, we've got some parking on site, and the rest are across the street on Carpenter.
Right.
That are deed restricted to it as well.
Right.
So whether
But
they
they
meet
were not given variances for...
for commercial, I believe they were, and I believe Brony's was as well, for the numbers that they were required. I'm almost sure they
No,
are.
because Brony's had to rent all those spaces.
That's still not
across the
near
street.
enough spaces for that use. They've only got 10 spaces they rent off the city, so I'm sure they received a variance for their commercial use without looking it up.
I don't recall that happening, I guess.
I
let's,
don't really
move
think
on.
that's true. I
Yeah.
think you would have to look at the minutes to see. And I
Yeah.
think the previous zoning administrator let the application go so long that he, in effect, had to approve it himself. I don't think we ever really saw that, but you could check and see. It was something that just sort of slipped in because of some error that was made by the previous zoning executive.
I don't know. I wouldn't think it has the required number of
Check it
parking
and
spaces.
see. Maybe we did hear it, but there was some error made, I believe, that
And
allowed
to
that.
clarify the part you were talking about, I believe the B2D is established. I understand what you're saying about existing buildings, but it's established based on a distance from the parking garage, is how that came about and had a lot to do. And we will have the
And they
Thrones.
were farther away from the residential neighborhoods. I mean, that's the problem with the
Yeah.
residential neighborhoods being so close to that last block. And,
But to say that we don't, and I know it's changing the subject, but we're going to have a serious issue coming up in the near future about that area. We got 3 buildings that are about to be destroyed or demoed, so, with the fire. So that's going to create.
yeah, but that doesn't have anything to do with what we're doing. here
No,
now.
but it kind of goes against what Betty was saying. So, just so something to think about in the future. It kind of goes against what you were saying there a little bit.
Okay, I'm not following you.
When you're saying that all the buildings are existing,
Yeah.
so that's going to be a new build in likelihood down there. So it's going to create issues that we haven't encountered in a B2D down in that area. And you're saying since they're a new build, will they have to accommodate with all the parking on the site? Or do we want to look at it that way? So something that, and that's not the issue right now, but
Okay,
I'm just trying to
because-
clarify
Okay.
something that you were saying, that it could become an issue.
Okay.
And how we
So
handle
you're
the
talking-
B2D parking situation.
Okay, so
with
if you're
the
talking about the 3 buildings that were affected by fire,
Correct.
they may have to rebuild, but if they rebuild in their same spaces, they will still be essentially the building that they were. The construction will be new, but they won't be able to expand their footprint.
They will need to come in here, and they will need to get variances.
The West Union Fire buildings have nothing to do with this.
Right,
So,
That's true.
Could we
Right.
discuss $50?
Yes,
I
thank you.
appreciate that.
Right.
Thank
Paul.
you. Yeah.
Okay, you may be seated. Thank you. Is there anyone else who wants to speak on behalf of this, in favor of this variance or request? Okay, I have in here
I think-
5, yes.
Yes?
Yes,
no?
go ahead. Don't listen to him. We also have on the record 5 letters in support of the request from Athens Area Chamber of Commerce President Wendy Jackmass, from Leslie Schaffler. I apologize if I mispronounced.
Probably Leslie Schaller.
Schaller. Mac LaRue and Susan Mitchell and Gillian Berkowitz. Yeah. And I'm not going to read the letters, but they're all in support of the request. Now, is there anyone who would like to speak in general comment? General comment? Go ahead. Please state your name and your address, please.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman and members of the board, my name is Ken Ryan. I own Ryan Law Office on 18 West State Street and represent a number of the owners of businesses that are in the B3 zone and North Court area. And I'm only speaking in general comment. I want to make very clear, in no way are any of my comments or any of my assertions tonight in opposition to the project that Mr. Valentor has designed and that the Goldsberries are proposing. It's a beautiful building, and I think something that most of the business owners in the Uptown area would like to see, that kind of thing. Clearly, the issue here is the parking, and the parking has been and continues to be an issue for those folks that are on that North Court Street end of town. And so in that regard, and therefore really in many respects, the folks that I'm talking in favor of, and really, I guess, in the same area where I am, because I'm just on the opposite side of the street from the uptown zoned area, we share a lot of the same frustrations, the frustrations that bring them here asking for the variance, and the concern with having to provide commercial parking for those businesses in that area where they're not required in other areas. And I think we see the north end of Court Street that is evolving and changing in a way that the central part of Court Street and the southern part of Court Street has not really seen quite the evolution that the north end of Court Street has. So the problems that are being outlined with regard to parking, especially the distance and the commercial requirement, again, are shared, but are not particularly unique. Unique, certainly, maybe to that North Court area, not necessarily all of B3, but it's not a problem that is really just unique to these particular owners, and one that I think is shared, and frustrations that are shared by others. So I want to be brief and just say I understand that if the board were to deny it, their request, it's understandable. Other businesses have had to comply to varying degrees, and understanding that some limited variances have been granted. But it would be understandable because other folks have had to try to navigate this field. But if they grant it, I would absolutely understand, because passage of that and approval seems to make common sense for the beneficial use of that property. And I would advocate for many of the properties that are on that North Court section. So in either respect, whether it's approved or denied, I just encourage you to articulate those specific facts that as you go through the factors, rather than mere conclusions to say that something, either that factor exists or doesn't exist, or supports or does not support the request, but to help them, to help us all, to try to articulate what are the facts specific to this situation that would help making your determination and help anybody else that is considering about what the beneficial use of their property will be. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And I assume there's no one who wants to speak in opposition. Sir, your last chance. Mr. Volunteer, do you have any rebuttal? Do you have, this is your chance to answer anything that was discussed, although there was no opposition.
Well, we appreciate your consideration tonight, and hopefully you can understand the situation that this piece of property in particular, as well as the others on North Court Street, face. And I do believe that, given the circumstances and continuing development in Athens, this is an exciting project which makes a huge impact in the community. And we feel that it would be a worthy consideration from your standpoint to allow it to go forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, discussion from the floor is closed, and now we could discuss, and maybe somebody could form a motion, and I have a new motion, a statement. Anybody who wants to make it, I'll give it to them. Any discussions?
Well, I guess I would like to say something. Recent history on the board, I think we've seen that when situations come up before us, that we maybe in trying to decide how to deal with them, once we grant a variance, it's in place. But if we would look at the proposal and decide to deny it with the prospects of maybe revising the project and having it come back, it seems to me it would benefit the board to think maybe in that direction, that this project could be nice to have lesser units. Ed was asking about how many units are in some of the other places, and one place had 36, it has 40 bed spaces. So maybe perhaps a smaller place and less parking requirements, and then the variance to be requested wouldn't be as strict or severe. I'm particularly concerned
I
about.
think the question is, can this property be used effectively and reasonably at this smaller and meet the code? That's the question.
But I also want to say that once plans can be revised,
Right.
And we've seen that before.
Well, that's something that we'll discuss during a. Yes, sir.
You might be able to get a fewer number of residential units, but you're not going to get a fewer number of commercial units given the size of that street.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think revising the plans and somehow getting rid of it, we have to have the commercial units on the first floor.
Right.
That's a given.
Right.
And that's still going to require a certain number of commercial spaces. It's not going to get smaller just because you reduce the number of residential spaces above it.
Well, no, but the total number of required spaces would decrease, and so therefore you could add some of those spaces over at the Carpenter Street on-site parking area, and so you would ask for a smaller variance because I am a bit concerned about where people would park, and because I live in those close-in neighborhoods, people park on my street and come uptown to do various things. Including going to work, including my neighbor. So, these are things I think that can be...
Considerations.
Right, absolutely.
Well, there's also the distance issue, like 250, 465 instead of 250. Even if you had fewer residents, you still have a distance issue.
I think you guys need to read what I laid up there and discuss this during your findings.
Yeah, that's for the
okay.
motion.
So somebody has to make that motion.
Who wants to make the motion?
Somebody.
Raise your hand if you want to make a motion.
You've already written it out, so I think we could read it.
Yes, I think
I
that
just want
would
to
be...
say, who wants to read it?
Okay.
I can't read it.
Okay. I move that we grant a variance to the property at 50 North Court Street from Section 2310, Table B, off-street parking requirements, to allow the construction of a mixed commercial multifamily structure with 6 on-site parking spaces?
10, I'm sorry, 10.
Okay. 10 on-site parking spaces. This is confusing, okay. Where, with 6 on-site parking spaces,
10.
where a total on-site parking spaces are required. And from section 230801D to allow
46.
46, is that the right number?
So far.
Okay. 46 off-street parking spaces, deed restricted, 465 feet away from the proposed building, where 250 feet is the maximum distance allowed, and to allow a total of 56 parking spaces where 81 are required. Okay, whatever. I think you got it.
John, did you rewrite what I wrote?
No.
Okay.
I made
It's a
it.
little confusing.
I made it a little bit more clear.
I don't think you did.
Okay, let's start over again, okay? We're proposing a variance for the property at 50 North Court Street from section 2310, table B, off-street parking requirements to allow the construction of a mixed commercial multifamily structure with a total of 56 parking spaces where 21 are required, 10 of the parking spaces to be on-site, and a total of 46 off-street, deed restricted, and to allow them to be 465 feet away, where 250 feet is the maximum distance allowed. Does that make any more sense?
Okay.
That's what you wrote.
Okay.
Second. Anybody?
I say.
Okay, Kay, second.
Can I ask one question, though?
Sure.
Because the initial request had stated granting a variance for side setback,
Yeah.
and what's
Are we
being
still-
proposed now, they've taken care of that.
No, you still have to read that. You didn't put in here.
Right, that's what I'm wondering. And that all,
Do they have,
that,
does the new design meet?
The new design meets the side yard setbacks, so I took it out altogether.
Okay.
Said that, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So we have a motion, we have a second. Let's discuss the findings. Exceptional circumstances. There are exceptional or extraordinary circumstances or conditions applying to the property in question or to the intended use of the property that do not apply generally to other properties or classes or uses in the same zone.
well, I think several other properties have complied, newer construction, so, no, I don't think that this is more than anyone else has had to contend with.
Well, but is there any exceptional circumstance in terms of the lot or the terrain or the property that's proposed itself, or?
Do you see any?
Kind of boxes us in, but
So what can you say? Give it-
I don't know. I mean, what I don't like is if you're going to have commercial space and you need parking, you can't have both. So how do you resolve that with this proposal or any other that will come up? Do we just leave buildings as they are and not have enhancements and,
And depending on the commercial business, that number could change. It could be
Yes.
more or it could be less.
yeah.
Can't be more.
Well, in terms of the people who are coming there to use the
I understand, but the number that we've said that is
Yeah, yeah,
required.
yeah.
Required as
Yeah,
it's
that's right. But the
defined
number of
by-
the people who may be going to the businesses.
Have we thought of anything?
Hmm?
Have we thought of something?
I can't think of any. Anybody else? Practical difficulty and undue hardship. Because of exceptional or extraordinary circumstances or conditions pertaining to a specific piece of property, the literal enforcement of these regulations will result in practical difficulty or undue hardship that is unnecessary to the achievement of public purposes. By not granting the variance, are we creating an unnecessary hardship for the appellant? That's the question.
I think if parking weren't a problem, that the answer would be yes. If we were convinced that parking wasn't a problem and there wouldn't be overflow into contiguous neighborhoods, this would be a much easier decision.
Betty?
Well, I don't know what to say about it exactly. You know, we had all the facts and figures about other people who have had to comply to the regulations and people who have not. Then maybe it would be easier to decide.
I guess we're talking about the achievement of the public purpose.
Yes, I think maybe that is more to the point than some of the things we're forced to look at here.
Right.
So in some ways, this is a very desirable sort of change for the corner.
Correct.
On the other hand, we have a big parking problem in Athens, and it leads to congestion in the streets, even if you consider getting back those curb cuts. So, I don't know what to say else about it. as they pointed out, they're contiguous neighbors in the adjoining.
Could you speak up just a little? Instead of
Okay.
looking down at the paper. and
Well,
speaking.
I can't talk without looking at the paper.
I know.
because the paper tells me what I'm trying to say. Okay.
Well, just speak up a little bit then.
Okay. You could address the fact that it's contiguous to a different zone with different requirements. However, it's not the only property that it's contiguous to
Right.
that's adjoining zone. So in that sense, it's not absolutely unique.
No.
If it were, perhaps you could make that argument, but no.
I would just note that there's been discussion on council for at least 2 decades about rezoning that B3 area to a B2D, and it
Yes,
just
I
goes
know.
back and forth.
Planning Commission's
but-
recommended it 5 times.
Okay, but at the moment, it's still B3.
And so the
So-
point
It
is that people on city council who represent the neighborhoods have a reason for that, and I'm not sure what it is, right?
Well, I don't know, but it
So
is.
the point
it
is, it
what is
hasn't
right now.
changed.
No.
Right.
And there's,
We're stuck with it.
right, and we are with that, so that's what we need to deal with.
Preservation of equal property rights. A literal interpretation of these regulations would deprive the appellant of rights commonly enjoyed by others in the same zone and the same vicinity, while the granting of the requested variance will not confer on the applicant any special privilege that is denied to other properties in the same zone and the same vicinity.
Well, with parking a problem already on that section of State Street, West State Street, running parallel to Mill, and then on Court Street itself, down at that corner, I mean, it's almost impossible to find a parking place. I think those people that are already using it for their businesses and have been granted the opportunity to use it under either grandfathers or other zoning, by adding more congestion to that parking area, even if would, I think, be would perhaps be, I guess this, what I'm saying belongs down absence of detriment. I think what I'm trying to say is an absence of their.
Well, but if you look at preservation of property rights, if you talk about in the same zone, that's one thing.
Correct.
And if you talk about the same vicinity,
That's another
that's
thing.
another
It's another
thing.
thing, correct,
Okay.
yes.
So in one sense, you would be giving them special privileges apart from those who have already had to comply in B3.
Correct.
But in the vicinity, there is B2, and they do not have to supply commercial spaces.
Right, but we
Therefore-
are not here to determine the line, I mean, those things are established.
I'm reading the code.
Well, the way I read
it-
This, as it says, okay?
Well,
in
the way I
same
read it,
zone, the same vicinity.
It says,
It's
no, it
different.
says the same zone and the same vicinity. So,
Okay, all right, so
Yes.
they have to be the same.
They
thing.
have to be
Good, thank you
both,
very
yeah.
much.
Sure.
Oh, okay, I see.
I'm not a
Okay.
lawyer, by the way, so, but
Okay.
I know what and is.
Not an or.
Okay.
Okay, anything else? Minimum variance. The variance granted is the minimum variance required to make possible the reasonable use of the property. In that sense, I would say no, because there would be other alternatives. Absence of detriment. The authorizing of such variance will not be substantial detriment to adjacent property and will not materially impair the purpose of the zoning code or the public interest. And that's what you were saying, Joan, right?
Correct.
Any more comments on that? Not of a general nature. The condition or situation of the specific piece of property or the intended use of said property for which variance is sought, one or the other or in combination, is not of so general or recurrent of a nature as to make reasonably practicable the formulation of a general regulation for such condition or situation.
Well, we just suggested
We
that
just
the city
suggested
code
that.
should address that because it creates a problem with people.
Any final thoughts before we vote?
Who is not voting tonight?
Ed.
Ed,
All in favor of this request for the variance, please raise your hands. All opposed? So we have 5-0. Okay, we have a couple more things in here. Deposition of minutes from November 12, 2014. I think, Ed, you had one typo that it was corrected. A motion to approve the minutes of November 12th.
So moved. Oh, knock away. Sorry, you do it.
Okay. You made the motion?
bookend.
Second?
Second?
Yes, okay.
Okay, all in favor, raise your hands. Okay, and that's it.
That's it.
Happy holidays to everyone.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
Motion to adjourn?
I move.